Good morning, guys. This is your instructor Ashish Pagare. I'm making this video for the chapter 2. Let me go to the modules page, and here we have all the different modules. So during week 1, you were supposed to do the self-introduction and installing the Eclipse. During week 2, you were to read chapter 1, look at the video lecture I have done, participate in the discussion, and do the quiz. For week 3, you have to do the chapter 1 and do the assignment that I have mentioned. From week 4, you have chapter 2. There are some of the videos provided by the publishing company, but I'm making this video as well to help you out. I will be posting a discussion for chapter 2, so you shall see that show up. And during the week 5, we'll be working on the chapter 2 assignment. So you will see my video here as well. Chapter 2 is part of this chapter week 4 and week 5. So there are some PowerPoints, but if you have the book, you should read the book. And here is my ebook. I can show you. We will be going through it in this chapter, which is going to do introduction to Java applications, how to do input output, and how to use operators. These are the main objectives. We'll be writing a simple Java application and learn those concepts. So let's go through the points we have. There are multiple IDEs or integrated development environments or software in simple words you can use to write your Java application. One is Eclipse, which is what we are using, NetBeans, IntelliJ IDE, and there are many more as well. You can actually go online, look up online Java editors, and then do the coding using those as well. So here is one simple project that the textbook provides us. It's welcome one file. So when you create a Java class, it has to be given a name, and the name of the file when you save it on your computer, whether it is Mac or Windows or what have you, has to be the same name. So here they're talking about a simple project called welcome1.java. This is a class, and you have a public word here which we'll learn later. It's called access qualifier. You have the scope qualifier. We have the class which is required, and welcome one is the name because that's the file name. And you have a curly brace, which is part of the Java syntax. This is how we write Java code. So if there is a public class with an open braces, there is a end with a closing braces. So you can see that it kind of aligns by itself. Here we have a public static void main method. This is what we call a method, and it has a certain parameters that we supply within the parentheses. These are called arguments. So this main method takes one argument, which is an args. It's a string array. At this juncture in our class, you do not have to worry about it. Just take it at face value, please, so that we just understand that this is a mandatory thing. And what we have on line number 7 is system.out.println. So this is a printing line. Ln is a line, and it's going to print welcome to Java programming. So because this method has an opening curly brace, we need to have a closing curly brace right here. This is a simple project or a program written in Java which will generate the welcome to Java programming. As many of you have done for the week 1 Eclipse installation, you all have also done something similar where you said hello world. So let me launch my Eclipse here, and hopefully it will come very quickly, and we can basically do this whole thing in Eclipse together, so you all can learn to do that. Here we have I got a chapter 2 project. Since it's not there, we are going to delete it and recreate it. How about that? So we'll say yeah, go ahead and delete it as clean as possible. This is Eclipse, nothing is there. We'll go to file, we'll go to new, and we will create a Java project. We are going to call it chapter 2. That's it. We are going to use just some Java JRE, Java Runtime Environment, whatever you may have. Since I have installed this a little while ago, mine may be slightly older, but it doesn't matter. You go next, it's going to create everything, and you go finish. So here we have a chapter 2 project is created. Let us create a new Java class. How about that? So we'll create a Java class, and we'll call it hello world, and we are going to have public we are going to add public static void main. By having public static void main, you can actually run it. So public static void main is the way you run an application in Java. You can have 100 classes, but only one will have the main method, and that's the one which will initiate your project. So think about a website. You may have millions of pages, but you might enforce that the user must start from the login page, because that's your main web page. After login, you can move around. So similarly, from a very simple point of view, we have a hello world, and we have added public static void main will finish it. So this is what we are given by the Eclipse. And here we have nothing. It just says to do method stub. You can see the code is kind of aligning automatically, so it comes up nicely. What we'll do is we'll just say system.out.println. So we are saying, hey, on this system I want to output something in a line, and when you have to output something which is a string, you must enclose it in double quotes, which is what I have done. And in the very end, every line that we write has to have a semicolon in the end. So we will do this, we will save it, and then we will run it. So when we run, it will run and it displays hello world. Let me fix my spelling. As you can see, we will save it, and I'm using Command S or Control S on my keyboard to save, and here we have hello world. We can say hello world from our entire class. So we are just welcoming the world, and we want to save it. Yes, so it prompts me, hey, I've made some modification, and there is this tiny little asterisk sign which is showing you have made some modifications. Do you want to save it before you run? And obviously I want to save it before I run. I save it, I run it, and here is the output. It says hello world from our entire class. So we are displaying using println, which is a print new line. What it does is, after doing this, basically the cursor is in the next line. Do you see how the cursor is blinking in the next line? So it displays it and then creates a new line, okay, a return character. This is so that if we write something else, it's going to print in a new line. So here we have system.out, out.println, and we will say this is Ashish. Because I am using println, this line will display in one line and this one will be down below. So take a look. I'm going to run it, and it says hello world from our entire class. This is Ashish. So by using the println, we are displaying line by line. But hey, you know what? There is print as well. So if we do that, take a look what will happen. After generating this output, the cursor will be blinking, and what we'll have is this line, which is this is Ashish, will be right after class. So take a look at it. It says hello world from our entire class. This is Ashish, because that's where it ends and that's where the next one starts. Let's put a full stop and a space on the first line. When we run it, it says hello world from our entire class, full stop, a space, this is Ashish. There we go. So there are multiple printing outputs that are available to us. One being what you see on my monitor, system.out.print, another is system.out.println. This code that we are looking in the sample is using println, so it displays welcome to Java programming. When we are writing the code, folks, we should learn that doing documentation is an important task, or commenting. So to write a comment, you shall put 2// and you can say the line below is going to display something to the user. Why am I doing this? This is to help me, myself, and my colleagues learn what I'm doing. And you may write anywhere, this is the beginning of the main method, and you may write down below, or you can also write after you have written a code. You can say this is the end of the main method. So This is beginning of the main method and this is the end of the main method. You can write by itself or you can write at the end something like this. So I'm just moving it so you can see how I can write a piece of code, end it with a proper way it shall end, and then hey, because I want to keep my code a little short, I'm putting the comments right after that, or I can write the comment below in a line by itself explaining some things that is happening in the subsequent line or bunch of lines. In order to write multiple lines of comment, you shall use forward slash a star and a star 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 or an asterisk and the star and a forward slash. So this is a project name, a hello world. Then I shall say developer name, Ashish Pagare. Then I should say purpose. This is a simple program that displays some output to the user and so on and so forth. So what am I doing here? All these green lines that you may probably see on your screen are basically comments, but rather than having to put double slash in front of every line, I have this convention that the first line of the comment should start with a forward slash and a star, and the last line should end with a star and a forward slash. And in between, you can put star sign and keep typing, 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 however much comment or documentation you desire. This could be anywhere. It could be in the beginning, it could be in the end. A lot of companies require you that you put the copyright information. So you might do copyright here to say, you know, copyright, this is property of FedEx or something like that, and no permission, you are not allowed to copy without permission and so on and so forth or what have you. Okay, or we might say Northwest Mississippi Community College or something like that. Okay, so these are how you put documentation or commenting in your code. This is what's been explained here. This is multi-line comments. This is how Java docs are actually created. You can add as many blank lines as you want without having any problem. So lines, by putting comments, if your code becomes bigger, it's not going to slow down your code at all. Okay. When we are naming a class such as hello world, we can name it anyhow we want, except that it cannot start with a number. A digit or a number are not allowed. You can use, as it's mentioned here, you can use series of characters containing letters, digits, underscores, and dollar sign that does not begin with a digit and does not contain spaces. So those are the only rules for naming a class. Okay, otherwise you're free to name your class however you want. If you're doing a project for chapter 2 exercise 10, you should just say my class is exercise 10. If you're writing a project for a watch, you can say my class name is watch, you know. And if you have another class which is digital watch, you may call it digital watch. Make it as understandable as possible. Try to use nouns like we discussed in the last chapter to name your class. If you have multiple words such as dollar amount, make them camel case. Camel case is like you have these humps for every word you are using the capital letter. You can also use underscore inside the name, but you cannot have just the underscore. It's not allowed. Okay. The class body begins with a left curly brace and ends with a right curly brace. So here we have, this is the opening curly brace and this is the ending curly brace. Outside of that, you can have other code, you can have other things as well, but the body of the class is defined by those curly brace combination. Declaring a method. When you declare a method, you use certain keywords to declare the method. Like I mentioned, the main is the name, a special name. It's a reserved word in Java. This is what you use to tell the Java runtime environment that this is an executable file. If you don't have the main in the proper manner, then you can't run your application. So having a public, which is open to everybody, a static, which is a static, you don't have to create an instance of this class. Another thing we'll learn subsequently. The void means this particular method does not return anything. It just does something. And the name is main. It takes a parameter argument, which is args, happens to be a string array. At this juncture, like I requested you all, do not worry about the signature. Why we are writing all this stuff, just take it at a face value and continue on with the project. As we are doing subsequently, as you build your knowledge, you will see why we are doing these things. To display an output, we are using system.out.println. Now, why are we using this dot business? Basically, this is the Java library. There is a Java library called system. It has an object or a class called out, and that has a bunch of methods. That is why we are using system.out, like we probably in a similar corollary, we can say South Haven is in Mississippi, and Mississippi is in America. So we might say America.Mississippi.South Mississippi Community College. So we are saying there is a library called system, and it has a bunch of stuff in it. We can probably take a look at it. So if we type just system dot and just do nothing, there is a class, then there is a ERR, print stream, input stream, output stream. So I'm just going through this, not doing anything. We can do system.exit, we can do system.gc, which is garbage collection, and so on and so forth. So there are a bunch of things in this library, just like you have a science section in the library, and it will have multiple books, and books have multiple pages. So system.out basically is one of the class, and it has bunch of functionality available to us that we can use to do some printing, okay? Like we are doing in the lines above. I mentioned about every method in the class must have a closing curly brace. So that is what we are doing. Now, if you are using Eclipse and when you save your file, or even if you don't save and you have a mistake, you will see a squiggly line. So what's happening there? Hey, your code is being compiled automatically. So if I purposely don't put a semicolon and go here, there is an X mark. So this is the benefit of using Eclipse, the integrated development environment, because it is checking anything and everything we are doing and trying to help us. If there is spelling mistake, or this like, hey, I don't know what is Ashish, this is not present in the dictionary, well, add it to the dictionary so that we don't have to keep seeing this squiggly lines and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is what we are learning here. Every code must have a proper opening curly brace and a closing curly brace. When we are compiling, when we are writing, and the Eclipse is compiling automatically, but if you are using command line prompt like terminal or command prompt, you may basically have to do by yourself. So if you do Java, it'll run the Java command, and Java C is what you use to compile. So if I am compiling my hello world, I would have to go to the proper place, where proper folder, and then write something like this. This is the way to compile. Java C is the compilation, but we don't have to do this because Eclipse is helping us. And how do you run? You do Java, and you don't put .java in the end, because when you compile, your .java class is converted into a dot class, which is still readable. You can open and see something in it. But when you run it, it turns this bytecodes into the language, the machine language that the computer can understand. But this welcome one dot class or hello world.class, we can still see it, and I can probably show you how it actually looks like. So if we go here, and if you look at the source code, we have hello world, and in the bin we have the bin folder, excuse me, we have the hello world.class. We can actually open it with text editor and see how it will look like. So hopefully I can probably show you in the applications folder. If I get a text editor, or we can probably open it with text editor. Let's see. You can see that this is still readable, don't you think? I mean, there are some foreign characters here and there, but I can say this is Ashish, hello world. And what am I looking at? This is the hello world.class. Who is creating this class? The Eclipse. Every time I save it, it generates this file. So if I show you here, when was this last modified? 6:11. Right now the time is 6:13. Let's go to Eclipse and we will say this is Ashish Pagare. We will save this file. So if I save it, this is going to be 6:13. I save it, and when we go to this document folder, it says today 6:13. So it is automatically being compiled and saved. And when we click this green check mark to run our project, this is basically the corresponding Java command that one would use on a command prompt. But nowadays, many of the developers in organizations don't use the command prompt as it is mentioned here in Microsoft Windows. It is the command prompt. On Unix, it is the on Mac or Unix, it is called terminal, which is where you would go and you will run your project like this. So we don't have to do that because we are using Eclipse. Let's go next. So in the process of working, we did look at how we can use the print and how we can use the println. A print does not move the cursor to the next line, so it will keep the cursor blinking. And here they are saying, let's print welcome to with no spaces, and then we'll put system.out.println space Java programming. It will still generate the same output as we had before, but it's just that the code is broken into 2 lines. So this is what they are doing. Same thing. What you can also do is, if you want to print in multiple lines, one can use what is called \n. \n is a way of telling the software that we want to press the enter key after the \n is present. So if I just do this, we'll have hello in one line, world in another line, and from our entire class in the next line. So let's run it, and you can see hello world from our entire class. So if you put another \n in front of our, it'll have 4 lines, hello world from our entire class. So this is a way to explicitly break a line into multiple lines, and this would happen if you're using system.out.print or println, because that println, what it does, it when it reaches the end, it puts enter in the end. So right now, the cursor is blinking right here. Now because I'm using println, the cursor allows me to be right there. So this is what it's happening. We are breaking by virtue of using \n. Hey, guess what? There is a \t, which is the tab. So let's see what it does. It basically is going to put hello and world separated by tab, which is a predefined amount of distance. And then because after the word world, you have \n, the from goes in the next line. Then there is a \n, which makes the our entire class goes in the next line, and the cursor is blinking. So anything that is printed afterward, if there were to be any, will go in the new line. Why? Because we are using println. So this is what we have. These are the list of different escape sequence we can use. \n is to create a new line, \t is for horizontal tab, \r, which is usually confused with \n, is a carriage return. If you literally want to display a \, you have to do it twice. And if you want to display something in quotation mark, you have to escape the quotation mark by using a \, in front of it. So if I were to say from our entire class should come in quotation marks, I'll use a \, double quotes, and in front of the full stop, I'll put \ and a quotation mark, which will allow us to display hello world from, in quotation mark, our entire class. Okay, let's go to the next section. So displaying text with printf. Printf is to display formatted text. This is what f means. So it takes, as you can see here, it takes a format and it takes the string you want to display. So if you were to display without, let's just keep it extremely simple, shall we? So we have our hello world showing up, and what we would like to do is, instead of using print ln, we will use printf. So here is an example. They are showing that we have a printf which is going to take a format. So percent is what we need to use. The percent s is for string. Percent n is to put a new line. That means press enter, and then percent s is there is another string, and then put a new line after that. So let's do that. So we'll say, hey, I'm going to have a percent s, a string, then I want a new line, which is percent n, then I will have another string, and I want a new line after that. So we have hello world, we will put hello, and we'll put world. So there are three things happening here because my format is having percent s and then another percent s. I've got two strings. Now let's just put another one, and we'll say hello world from Ashish, and we will put that, hey, I got three strings, so I shall have another s and another n. When we run this, take a look what happens. We'll have hello world from Ashish, because I've got percent s, which is I got a string, then I want an enter button, then I have another string, and then I have enter, and then another string, and then enter. So the cursor is blinking after the line which has from Ashish. Basically, this is the way to print something in a more formatted manner. If we want to print with a tab separated, we'll use percent %t rather than percent %n, and when we run it, it's going to have a little bit of problem because maybe this is not working. But for now, let me not experiment with my video here. We shall stick to percent %n and go back to percent %t subsequently. So this is a very important thing in one of the assignments that you'll be doing. You will be using the percent printf with the percent %s and percent %n and percent %d to display output in a more formatted manner. So kindly keep this in mind as you are reading through this chapter. How do we work on the integer or do some arithmetic operation, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and divide? This is the example which we see here, figure 2.7 addition.java. So here there are lots of new things going on, and I want to take it very slowly. So let's just say I want to erase everything, and I want to keep it as clean as possible so that my students are not confused in any manner as possible. So here we have a simple skeleton with nothing. This is basically what Java or Eclipse provides us, and we can fill it up with an artificial intelligence program or a hello world program. It could be as simple or as complex as we would like it to be. Now when we need to work on integers, we need to ask the user, please enter something. So in order to prompt the user, we need an access to the input terminal or input. Output, we know we can use system.out.println, but how do we get the input? In order to do that, folks, we need to say, hey, Java library, I want to import one of the Java libraries which will allow us to access the scanner. Scanner is one of the classes which is present in the java.util package, or as I was telling you, it is present in this java.util library section, and the name is called scanner. So scanner allows us to get something by asking for the user to enter something. Okay, so what we'll do is we will say, hey, I'm going to have two integer variables, an integer 1 and integer 2. So I'm just declaring them, and we want to get these values from the user. In the variable names you cannot have spaces, so the first one is number 1 and second one is number 2. Why do we have these golden color lines underneath them? Because we are declared them, but we are not using them. Okay, so we need to use them. Now in order to get an instance of the scanner, we need, or in order to use the scanner, we need to create a variable for scanner. So we'll say scanner input is equal to new scanner. These are some of the concepts that you will learn in the subsequent chapters. So we are declaring a new instance of the scanner class, just like, you know, uh, the the question that I had for you about the watch class, you know, what are some of the things that you will have for a watch? So if you're creating a class for watch, you can generate bunch of watches based upon that class. This is what we are doing. We have a class provided by Java called scanner, and we are creating an object and giving it a name input. So this is what we are doing, and we are saying that this scanner will scan the input way for us and allow us to take the information from the user. So we'll say, hey, number 1, I would like you to be input dot next integer. So this is what we want to do. We want to grab the value entered by the user. But before we do that, we want to say system.out.println. We want to say, please enter a number. Please enter first number, you know, and that would be a prompt user will see, and he or she will then enter the number. So similarly, we would like to ask the user to enter the second number. So I'm just copying it, and I'm going to say, please enter second number. And when that happens, I'm going to save it in a new variable, which is my number 2. But I also need to calculate their sum. So let me declare a sum variable, and then I'll say sum is nothing but number 1 plus number 2. How about this? Okay, mind you, some spelling mistakes here. All right, and then we just added the number 1 and 2. Now what we need to do, we need to display the output back to the user. So to display the output back to the user, kindly watch this carefully. System.out.printf, I'm using a formatted printing, okay, and excuse me if I make some small spelling mistakes, but we have this. We are going to say, I want to display what was entered and what's their sum. So we will have in quotation mark, we'll display the format in which we want to display the output. So we'll say a percent D and percent N, percent D, percent N. I want to display number 1 and number 2 and then their sum. Okay. So let's just let me do it like this. So sum of percent D and percent D is percent D. So this is what I want to display. Sum of percent D and percent D is percent D. So first I want to display number 1, comma, number 2, comma, sum. Now what we are going to do is we are going to say this percent D will be replaced by number 1, the second one will be replaced by this one, and this one will be replaced by this. So it will say sum of 2 plus 3 is 5. See my point here? Okay. Now why are we using percent D? Didn't we just learn percent S? Hey, guess what? Percent S is for displaying string. Percent D is for displaying integers. And what is integer? Whole number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is an integer. Okay, minus 10 integer, 100 integer, 1 million integer. What about 10.7? That's not an integer. It has a fraction in it. Okay. Anyway, we'll cover that a little bit later. Let's run this. So here we go. It's saying enter, please enter number 1. Sure, we will enter 1. Enter. Please enter number 2. Sure, we'll enter number 2. And it's saying the sum of 1 and 2 is 3. You get it? This is what's happening here, and this is what they are displaying here. Now, why are we importing? Because we need to use the scanner in order to grab the value and from the user. So therefore, we need to import some packages or some classes so we can use them. This is the way you utilize the Java Development Kit or JDK. JDK has bunch of class libraries and we are just importing what we need. Okay, if we import too much, we are not using them properly. So we should import only what we need. All right. We declared a scanner instance, created an object, we called it input, and then we said, hey, input dot next integer. Whatever is the next integer, grab it, put it into number one. Then display a line called please enter number two or second number. When whatever is entered, grab it and put it into number two, and then just sum them up and display the output. Okay, there are multiple ways of doing this, folks. So we are just doing it the simplest way possible. And this is what they have been talking about all along here. We are displaying and grabbing the values. We are generating the output. There are multiple ways of generating the total as well. So we are declaring a line for first declaring a variable and then filling it up. This is nice and clean, the most simplest way, so that everything is clear, understandable to you all. The textbook does slightly different, but not totally different. This is what they are doing. We declare and then we initialize. When you say int number one, you know what happens? We are telling the computer, I need some memory, and rather than referring it by zeros and ones, I'm going to call it number one. That's what it is. And it's going to give us a variable called a location in the memory by the name number one and allow us to reference it by this simple English word number one. By using the equal sign, which is the assignment operator, we are saying, hey, number one, whatever you may have, I'm going to grab what is entered by the user and store it in your location so that you have that new value with you. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Variables such as number one, number two, and sum actually corresponds to location in computer's memory. Every variable has a name, type, and size, and a value. So the name is number one. The type is integer because we type int. The size is basically how much is allowed to store, and we will talk about that later. And the value is whatever is the value. When we type a line like this, int number one, you know what happens? The value that is given by the operating system, the computer, to this memory is nothing. It's null. It's blank. And blank in computer programming is called null. So there is nothing unless you use the equal sign and put something in it. So this is what the highlighted area is, what goes into the number one in our case. So you have 45, 72, and the sum will be the addition of 2, which is 117. So this is what they are trying to explain here in the same way we did it as well. You can use the plus sign to add something, minus sign to subtract, star sign or asterisk to multiply. You can use forward slash to divide, and remainder is the mod, MOD. So if you want to say 5 divided by 2, or excuse me, 5, when 5 is divided by 2, what is the remainder? It's 1, and that is when you will say 5 mod 2, and the answer will be 1. Okay, 99% of the time I have done the programming, you just stick to the four operations which are superbly common. You are multiplying, adding, subtracting, dividing. You hardly have a need for remainder per se, and not that to say it's not useful. These are just some representation. You can use the grouping to group and explain clearly communicate what should happen first. Okay, by using parentheses, you can force an order of execution. The innermost parenthesis will be executed first, then the outer one, then the outer one, and so on. Okay. If you have a very involved line of code, then multiplication, division, and remainder will happen first from left side of the line to the right hand side, as it's mentioned here, and then you will have addition and subtraction from the left to right. These are the rules that are followed by the programming language. The founders of Java created these rules, and that's what we are doing. These rules are actually nothing different than the rules that we use to solve any algebraic equations, even on a piece of paper. So some of the examples that they have mentioned here about some common things we have learned and how you will write it in Java. Please study these things. And decision making, equality. If you want to check if the two things are equal, then we will be using double equal to sign. If you want to check if one thing is not equal to the other, then you will use exclamation mark and equal to sign. If you want to check if something is greater than another, then we'll use this angle bracket pointing to the right. And then if something is less than another, we'll use the angle bracket pointing to the left. Then if we are checking if x is greater than or equal to y, we will write it like this. And if x is less than or equal to y, we will write like this. These are very important concept, and there is nothing else in the world. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's all that is there in order to do comparison, logical comparison for equality and to check between the two variables. Why do we need to learn about this? Because we need to say if the degree is bachelor, then you are accepted in the master's program. If your degree is not bachelor's, then you are not accepted in degree program or master's program. So we need to use these equality and relational operator to check something is true or not, which is where we are going to the next one. We want to, this example here in figure 215, the whole concept is we are doing comparison. We are asking the user to enter two numbers, and we are checking if the two numbers are equal, or if the two numbers are not equal, or if the two numbers are less than, the first is less than the second, or the first is greater than the second, and so on. So basically these lines that you see here, I can practically copy these lines, and probably I have two numbers that I'm asking the user to enter, and I can actually do like this. Obviously I will have to make some modifications, but I'm just saying, literally what we have, if there are two numbers that we are asking from the user, then we have, if the two numbers are same, then we will display this. And if the two numbers are not same, then we'll display another line. If the two numbers are, if the number one is less than the second number, then we are going to display something else. So since I kind of copied from my ebook, I am having to make some modifications here, but in a moment you shall see what I am doing, so that it will be superbly clear and easy for you to understand. This is just going to save me a little bit of time, since I have access to the ebook and nothing else. And the significance here in this chapter for introducing you to these concepts is to give you a holistic view of what we will be doing in the coming classes. So that is what you are seeing here, and here we go. We are pretty much close to being done. I'm just going to make some modifications so that everything is aligned properly, and you have if all properly done, we can properly correct the indentation of everything so that everything is properly aligned and left to right. The whole thing is enclosed within the class. The class has a method, and method has bunch of lines, so they are kind of scooted inside, and you can see that we are asking the user to enter one variable and another, and if the numbers are same, we'll say, hey, number 1 is equal to number 2. If they are not equal, then we'll display number 1 is not equal to number 2. If the number 1 is less than number 2, we'll display number 1 is less than sign number 2, and greater than sign less than equal to greater than equal to. This is what we are going to do. So let's just do it. We run it and we say the first number I would like to use is 2, and the second number I want to enter is also 2. So currently when I press 2 and I haven't pressed enter, I'm still stuck on line number 18. This is where the program is awaiting my response. So it's going to run line 20. Is 2 equal to 2? You bet. And then therefore line 21 will run. So let me just press enter, and it says 2 is equal to 2, 2 is less than equal to 2, 2 is greater than equal to 2. Why did these two things came up? Because 2 is less than or equal to 2. Did it met the criteria? You bet it met the criteria. Therefore, we are having 3 lines coming in the output. And here as well, they are having some examples which will correlate to what I'm doing. Same thing. I have explained all these concepts to you. And this is where we reach the end of this chapter. You have some wrap-up points, summary of things we have learned. What I would like to do is go back here and mention that we have chapter 2 quiz and chapter 2 assignment. For chapter 2 assignment, you need to do 2.17, 2.18, 2.27 and 2.31, which are on the following page. So if we go to the exercises here and look at 2.17, this is what is 2.17 here. Write an application that inputs 3 integers from the user and displays their sum, average, product, smallest and largest. Use the technique shown in figure 2.15. Note the calculation of the average in this exercise should result in an integer representation of the average. So if the sum of the values is 7, the average should be 2 and not 2.33333333. So here, we are just going to do like this. Similarly, I'm just using this rather than having just 2. You may have int number 3 variables. We are just going to ask user to enter number 1, 2 and 3 and store those 3 values into the 3 variables. So, and then what we would like to do is we like to see their sum, right? As you can see, so we'll have int sum and we'll say sum is equal to number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3. This is going to be sum. We want to do int average, so we will declare a variable for average, and average is nothing but we will add them up, number 1 plus number 2 plus number 3 and divide them by 3. As you know, this is the way to calculate the average. Every line should end in a semicolon because this is how we write Java code. We also want to calculate their product. So we'll say int product, and product is nothing but number 1 multiplied by number 2 multiplied by number 3. This is it. Now we need to find which one is the lowest number and which one is the highest number. So we will say int lowest or smallest and int largest. Because they are numbers, we are declaring 2 variables, and what we'll do is, in order to calculate this, we'll say let's just say smallest is number 1. Okay, let's just say that. So we are just saying, assuming that number 1 is the smallest. So we are going to say if number 2 is smaller than smallest, that means if number 2 is smaller than what we were considering smallest, then the smallest will become number 2. We are going to swap it because this is what we just done. We are going to say if number 3 is less than smallest, then hey, we are going to swap the smallest with number 3. After these lines that I have written, these tiny little lines, these many, we are able to identify which one is the smallest among the 3 numbers. Let's just say you entered 1, 2 and 3. So 1 is stored here. 2, is 2 less than 1? No, go away, move out of this. Let's not go inside. Is number 3 less than the smallest, which contains 1? No, then we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so this is how you are doing the smallest. Similarly, you will do the largest. I don't want to disclose everything out to you all, so please keep in mind. When it comes to displaying the average, I just want to mention, you can display the output using the formatted way, and you can say average is %d %n. Close the quotation mark and type average. Now, by virtue of using the %d, I'm going to display the output in a whole number. So if I were to use f, then it would be a floating point. It will say 2.3333 like we were reading earlier. But by virtue of using %d, it will be a whole number. It may not be exactly accurate, but it would be just a whole number. This is what they were talking about. Okay, so this is the summary of what you will be doing for this exercise. Okay, I'm just going to wipe everything out and clean it. You have 2.18 as well, where you are going to just display these asterisks. So basically, you know, you are just going to do system.out.println, and within the quotation marks you are going to display some output like this. So you will display, you know, star 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 star, and then bunch of spaces, star and bunch of spaces, and a star and bunch of spaces and star. So I'm just kind of displaying this first line, and then you are going to display this, so it will look like these things. So you're just going to use display, you know, if I were to just display this probably you know, so many times and run it, you will get an idea. It will look like this. But hey, I want to remove all these because, you know, this is not what I desire. I need to have something like this: a square, an oval, an arrow, and a diamond. So display like this. Please just work it out. The other exercises you need to do is 2.27, which is right here. You need to just display a checkered pattern. So this is much easier than anything that we have done. So this is extremely easy. System.out.println, and you are just going to use star space star space star space star space star space star space star space, and then end with a semicolon. In the next line, basically you are going to have the same thing, but you're just going to put a space, and that's it. So you are going to repeat these two lines, and you will have a checkered pattern up here. So if you were to run it, it will display a checkered pattern just like they were asking. And you can increase the size of this, move them around and stuff like that. Okay. The 2.31 is about displaying using only the following techniques you learned in this chapter. Write an application that calculates the squares and cubes of the number from 1, 0 to 10 and prints the following result in table format as shown below. So let me leave this to you all. Try to figure out how we can do this. You know, if you were to display using printf, how would you do it? You just have to do int number, and just, you know, imagine that you will have number equal to 0, and you're going to display system.out.printf and display 0 0 0. System.out.printf. Try it out, you know, or use another technique. I shall leave it to you. But hopefully this video was useful. Again, this is a chapter 2. This is going to be present in week 4 and week 5. So hopefully this will help you out. If I can be of any help, please let me know. My contact information is on the home page. Thank you so much.